Welcome to another book chat at the Celestial Arts Education Library. It is my pleasure to introduce Tara Aal and Aswin Subramanyan. And they have both co-authored a book called Astrology by Moonlight, which has just celebrated its first birthday. And we're sitting here in the dark moon 3 hours before the new moon in Aries in 2023 to discuss the dissemination of this book into the world and also its inception. So before we get too deep into the book itself, I'd love to know a little bit about both of your backgrounds and how you came together to work on this. So which one of you would like to start?
I think you should go.
No, I think you should go. Yeah.
Okay, this is how we basically met together. So giving way for each other. So I think my first introduction to Tara's work was through Infinity Astrological magazine, which came out of Serbia, edited by Smiljana Gavankic. So that was my first introduction, and I think it was tarot. But then, and I never had any introduction to tarot before that. But I think I kind of connected to whatever she wrote, and we kind of somehow we got together. I think I reached out to her, and somehow she kind of connected with me. And I don't know how we even started. Maybe it was an audio recording session where we spoke about something which, and the post actual conversation led us to talk. This conversation about Mercury and the Moon.
Yeah.
So, and she was saying about Mercury and I was saying about Moon, and she was talking about Moon. And ultimately, I ended up kind of giving this Jyotish perspective where Moon is emotional. And that was probably new to her. So she was quite interested and seemed to agree with me on that level. And then we tried to explore together in terms of what could be rational mind, Mercury being the rational mind, and the Moon being the emotional side of the mind. So both of us kind of explored and ended up writing a big article together. And we tried to pitch it to some leading magazines, and Mountain Astrologer being one of them. So it's funny that we should talk to you now. So, and Frank Clifford, we sent the article to Frank Clifford. And Frank Clifford presented the editorial team. And unfortunately, at that point of time, they did not want to publish an article on Moon or something like that, because always TMA has a theme, and our work did not fit that theme. So, and then Tara came over to India for a conference, and we met there. We became family friends. And then initially the plan was to kind of send to some other magazine, like obviously Dell Horoscope at that point. So I was thinking about maybe we should send to Ronnie Krishnan. But then we decided to go against, and we thought of, why not a book? So it is Mercury and Moon. How about Venus and the Moon, and Sun and the Moon? So this is basically it's an expansion of pioneering work by Dane Rudhyar, who kind of presented this solely lunar idea of working with phases of the Moon. So, and this kind of seemed to be an interesting thought, and we tried to, and the moment we decided that we are writing a book, we never went back on. So it was like we just met 3 times basically throughout the writing process. So I think from here you might want to continue.
It was very the experience actually was very Moonlight, because the way that we connected was very intuitively. I know it sounds weird, but we really didn't sit down and plan big sections. It kind of came together. But I want to mention that we count the Mountain Astrologer one of our biggest blessings for saying no to that article, because if they had published the article, we probably wouldn't have written the book, right? So that's kind of one of our ongoing jokes about it. And when I was writing articles for Infinity Astrological magazine, they were tarot articles, a lot of them. I was trying to talk about the correspondences between astrology and tarot. So even that is kind of a moon type experience, right? Working more with the images and the things that are a little bit less rational. So we still look back over time and say, one, how did it even happen? Right? Seriously, like to this day, like how did that happen? And how did we write a whole book with that few amount of meetings? Ashwin, you say it well. I forget the exact word you say. You say when you have that kind of a divine calling, you just don't have a choice about it. You just do it. Like it's sort of like something in the stars or whatever. It just says you're going to write this book. And then as long as you say yes, the things just move forward. So yeah, it was quite astounding that way, and really beautiful that way too. We both have strong moon, at least from the Western perspective, strong moon aspects in our charts, which I think adds to the flavor too, which is almost like trying to bring that part out into the world. At least that's how it felt to me. And one of my favorite things Ashwin says is we kind of have a new palette of colors or a new smorgasbord of like ice cream flavors for the moon after working on this book. But yeah.
It's quite interesting because I think the most important thing is like we never had any reference point to go back and see what this phase does, because this work we don't know if it's ever been done, but maybe Firmicus Metanus touches it in his 4th century work, but it's a little bit different. He works with a lot when it comes to the moon, but then this is a little bit different, and it was difficult for us to kind of go back to see reference points in terms of how does various phases of Moon Venus work or Moon Saturn works. It was quite difficult. So we had to kind of try and understand our own charts more than anything, and also try and apply our own intuition and whatever we have learned in astrology so far. So thing is, like, we never approached this book as some kind of a groundbreaking work, which kind of many people have termed it luckily for us. But our intention was to kind of investigate and examine and try to put in our own understanding of astrology and the moon and its relationship with various planets. Like it's very natural, like moon always needs this support from other planets, so otherwise it's called as void of course. So
Yeah.
moon needs the color. So, and I think fortunately both of our moons are not void of course, so we had this color. So it was and as he said, it was like there was no. So there was no other choice. There was just, can you choose one finger from this? Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing you, if I wanted to sort of rephrase the contribution this makes to the field, it would be that Dane Rudyard was looking at the solely lunar cycle, basically the moon with relationship to the sun only. And now you've created a community of input with the phases, including all of the planets, so that it's not just focused on the sun alone, but you can see the phase of the moon with respect to any of the planets now.
Yeah. And you can do it in your birth chart. You can use it by progression. You can use it anywhere. But for me, and Ashwin's work is different than mine, but I'm so into like the interior, personal, kind of soulful, spiritual journey. It's so enriching to go just through your chart and look at, hey, what is the relationship between my moon and the other planets, which is just different parts of you, right? So to me, that's, it's initially we wanted to call the book Releasing the Moon. When we decided to go with the publisher Llewellyn, we had to make some, what's the word for this, when you have to agree to do with what someone tells you have to do.
Market forces, I think.
Yeah, it's like, but we wanted to
let's not go down that road.
and they were great, by the way. So it's not a complaint about them. It's just, that's just what it means when you give up, change from self-publishing to something else. But we wanted to call it Releasing. Yes. Concessions. Thank you, Nathan. Releasing the moon, because through these different phasal relationships, it does show how that moon, that innermost personal part of you kind of is released out there into life. And not everybody has aspects, but everybody has phases between any two bodies, right? So there's no chapter that doesn't apply to you, right? There's no thing that doesn't apply. I mean, except for the phase that wouldn't be yours, right, in that particular chapter, which we like that too, because the moon, as we like to say, is for everyday people, right? It's commoners. It's not for fancy people or certain, privileged people. It's for everybody.
Right. Well, and in a way that aspect of seeing what's not your phase can help build tolerance for others who have different phases. And you can, when you read those and really like fully apprehend what that is, you can sort of understand how other people are and how they're not going to be like you.
Yes, even if, right, there's something, even if other things are similar in your chart, for example. And you can also look ahead to what might happen in a progression, right? I mean, I don't even see a client these days for the most part without looking at what the progressed moon's doing. So yeah, how things are relating with each other, it's all about relationship. And that to me is what phases are. So yeah, but
And the most interesting thing is like, we don't even need to kind of look at only the progress charts or just the natal chart. You can even apply them to transits.
Yeah.
So I'm not, I'm intrigued by Stephen Forrest's work, or I've read Aal and Aswin's book. So it's quite interesting, but I don't put myself too much into that zone. I kind of tend to stay in that more objective or like, what she told us. So it's exactly on the opposite horizon. So, but it's not always that great events or life-changing events take place. It's just then and there. But we have to deal with everyday life. So, and Robert Hand once beautifully said that transits are most probably felt at the most internal level. So it's not necessarily that I walk outside and just fall down, or I lose my mobile somewhere. So it's not like that, but it might be what is really inside us. So internalizing this experience of current planetary positions is always very, it's very revealing. At least I have felt that since I started noticing. I never gave importance to transits as much, but the moment we start noticing, like this Saturn Mars opposition or square or conjunction, it's always very heavy internally. So my burden always rises to unimaginable levels when Saturn and Mars are together or when they are opposite to each other. So, and that is basically phases. And in Indian astrology, this relationship between Saturn and the Moon is really important. It's called as Sade Sati. So I have this unique, from an Indian perspective. So this experience of addressing the issues of how the Moon, fades off from Saturn and gains. So that's one of the most interesting things. And I applied a lot of those experiences while writing this book, and also in terms of understanding the relationship of the Moon with other planets. So maybe we can all kind of try to see where our natal Moon is and in which phase it is in comparison to other planets by looking at the transits. That might give an interesting picture, and you can take a look at the progress chart and look at where the progress Moon is and see how it makes aspects or phasal relationships with the natal position or even the progress position and also the transit position. So it's quite interesting. So there are multiple flavors. So
So let's rewind a little bit actually to, you just said Sadir Sati, SADIRSATI. Could you speak
yeah.
Okay, DE. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you speak a little bit about what that is and how that can contribute maybe into a Western astrological context?
It can be used in any context. It's because it's basically like the relationship between natal Moon and transiting Saturn. So in Indian astrology, so for example, if someone has the Moon in Aries by birth, the 7.5 years period begins when Saturn enters Pisces. So that is the most easier period. and when Saturn enters Aries, so it's directly in the same sign as the natal Moon is. And then the next thing is like Saturn's movement into Taurus. So this particular phase when Saturn is very adjacent and conjoined the moon, is considered as Sadesati. So Saturn takes 7.5 years to, pass through this zone, which is called as Sadesati. Sade is 7.5 is Sati, that means it's Sadesati. So it's a very unique experience, and moon is the most personal planet, and it deals with what we want, not even what we need. It's most selfish. So I just need this thing at this point, and Saturn kind of, it's like I might be a little bit stoic or deterministic here. So please bear with it. So, Saturn's role is to kind of throw a boundary and really force us as humans to get into those areas where we really should in life, but we might not want or need. So the understanding is that Saturn is the master of karma. So Saturn pushes the heart to kind of go in there and do what is actually necessary. And you don't have a choice. It's basically the path of righteousness or dharma. And precisely because we might not like what is happening, it's kind of understood as a very difficult period. So I tried to kind of put it in a very evolutionary concept, but it's a little bit more black and white if you study Jyotish texts. So, Saturn from, you wanted to say something?
Well, I was just going to say one thing we haven't mentioned is that one thing in the book. So for every pair, moon with every other planet, we talk about there being a bridge between the two. So for example, like between moon and Mercury, it's a bridge between heart and mind. And you're talking about moon and Saturn. And by the way, there could be a lot of different words we could have picked for these. So we just went with what felt the most, at least true to us. But with moon and Saturn, it's bridging abundance and limitations, right? How do you within yourself bridge those two parts? What does that look like for you? And also bridging energy, flow, and form, right? Because moon is about flow, but Saturn is about form. So, and some of what Ashwin, and this is just from my perspective, does very complicated astrology, right? So anybody who's worked with me knows that, which is amazing. Like it blows my mind, which is one of the reasons why working with Ashwin has been so good for me. Like it literally opened up my space to whole new ways of looking at things. But I tend to be more back to the basics, right? Like how much can we get into the basic archetypes and really flesh them out? If you're newer to astrology, just figuring out the phases in your birth chart with the moon with each planet is huge. It's been huge for me. I still reopen the book and remind myself, where's my moon, Jupiter again, and relook at it, because it's that helpful in understanding how I'm bridging those different parts of myself. So I just want to offer that if it starts to sound super complicated, it doesn't have to be. You can make it as simple, and you can make it as complicated as you want. And if you just want to work with sun moon phases, which is totally enriching on its own, that's available too. I just know I work with a lot of students who right away becomes, too much. And then people tend to not, oh, it's just too much for me. And I want to say that the moon, like the more you get into the moon, the more it pays you back. Because one of the things I always say with the moon is, to me, it's the part of myself or of ourselves that's responding in every moment to life. Am I okay? Am I okay now? How about now? How about with what Jen's saying? Is what Ashwin's saying okay? Is the room comfortable? Right? It's responding to all of these parts in us. So when you think about how that part does that sort of in your everyday existence, and then you sort of break it down into different parts of yourself and in your chart, it really does help you live better. It sounds cliche, but it's true. Helps you be more comfortable with yourself and with what's going on in life. You guys all know this. If we're not comfortable, if that moon part doesn't feel okay, not much is going to happen. And if it does, it's going to be sketchy. At least that's what I found in my life and with people that I work with. So, yeah.
Yeah, and another nice thing about that, keeping it simple, I think that I noticed with your presentation of the phases is that you don't necessarily need to know someone else's exact birth time or place. You can simply know their day they were born. And the moon does move 13 degrees in the 24-hour span, but you can still get an approximate read on what their phase might be and then learn so much about them without having to do that sort of astro sleuthing, like craftily trying to get their birth data. You can just simply be like, I know, oh, they're turning 34 and And
Yeah.
so this is their birthday. Let me look up and see in the ephemeris, like, what are their phases? And then you can suddenly get so much insight.
I'm
No need
curious,
of primary
is-
directions.
does everybody here already like know your sun moon phase at birth? Is everyone here actually familiar with phases at all? Or should we? I'm curious if anyone's,
Feel free to put in chat or raise your hand.
just kind of helps us know whether we go.
Yes.
I know Barbara knows some for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. So it looks like people are awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, once you just learn once if you already know the 8 phases, the basic ones we work with, the solely lunar, it's that same concept applies to the relationship of every other 2, planets or bodies you work with.
Right.
So that's the other thing about it, that it's, once you get that basic down, I don't want to say easy, but it's relatively, you're just now looking at it in a new pair. Okay. Well, now
I'm just going to hold up the book again because it's so pretty. But so
Ah.
if we're going to use this, do you think that it's important to know your natal phase as a default, and then like just kind of as a thorough, when we study our charts, we get to look through each of the moon's phases with each of the planets, and then also add the progressed moon to see, okay, now I have another layer, right? Like that's where I'm unfolding into, is like, would you recommend that people also look at their progressed chart?
Yes.
For me, yes. Yeah, because progressed moon phase shows you literally how you're currently, where you're at in that big 30-year cycle of living your purpose, right? Because sun and moon together, right? Sun is our sense of purpose and moon is how we're actually living it right on this planet. So when you put them together, at least that's how Jane Rujar taught it, which continues to play for me. I want to know not just the phase that I'm born in, which always applies. And I call that how you can best meet your moment. So knowing your natal birth phase is super important, because I'm a new moon. So I'm excited about this new moon today, because that's like, that's my phase. That's my lunation birthday phase. But knowing that for me, in most moments, following my gut, making a move when I know I need to, being willing, to step out, that serves me all the time. But I'm in a disseminating progressed moon solely lunar phase. That's very different energy. So I know that those 2 are weaving together right now. I could spend almost like half of a consult with someone just talking about just these things I just brought up just now. And then especially when you go back and look at, well, when did that last progress, new moon cycle start? Where was the seed planted? Where has it grown to now? And just being aware of that gives you consciousness, because you don't need astrology to live your life. You're going to be doing it anyway, but the consciousness helps you actually like dig in and like get with the energy.
But
So
you're
I
gonna,
would say,
but your book adds the idea, just not the solely lunar progressed phase, but also the moon, for example, moon Saturn progressed phase.
Yeah.
Like if someone had the moon, like I would ask the question of like, well, is there a reverse sense of the Sadir Sati in terms of if the progressed moon comes to Saturn and then moves away? Like I know it's going to be a few months, it's not, or a couple of years and not a 7-year thing, but like, is that going to be, or maybe a 7-year thing actually, but like, would that be sort of an echo, or, looking at maybe just taking moon Saturn still, like if you have that disseminating phase, that means the moon in your progressed chart's in a different phase with your natal Saturn, or even your progressed Saturn. So that would give you a new read on, oh, well, here's where I am with that bridge between abundance and limitation, right? Because that's a different phase.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know Ashwin, you probably have like a whole bunch of stuff to say about this, but my one
No,
thought,
no.
but what I would just say practically, like from like a thinking about being with a client, it would be too much and I would never get through everything if I tried to look at every moon planet phase. So what I would say is, if particular planets are extra important, or maybe, I don't know, you're in whatever annual perfection you're in, like that Lord of the Year, maybe that planet's extra important, right? Or maybe something else. But by the way, yes, I weave that into my like my evolutionary astrology stuff all the time. I am pretty non-denominational actually when it comes to it, but there may be something extra important, right? So I would be looking for what is standing out that needs to be looked at. And then that to me is where I'd be more likely, like with clients now, sometimes I'll just get a hit, or I'll know where I'll look at something and be like, okay, we definitely want to look at this person's whatever moon Jupiter phase, right? But I don't, at this point, can you imagine? I mean, how long would your session be if you're like, now we're going to go through not only your moon planet phases in your natal chart, but we're going to look at it by progression? I think it would get
Oh no, I
Great,
was thinking more
crazy.
about self-study, honestly, and not
Oh, yeah.
necessarily like client advice. But I think
Yeah.
also, yeah, I mean, I would operate in a similar fashion of just, oh, this thing is screaming to be discussed, right?
Yeah.
As you maybe get familiar about it with yourself, then you can start to see that in others, for example.
But especially if moon, even in general, because for some people, the moon is going to be more prominent in their birth chart, right? And if that is standing out more, I'm more likely to grab this book and like, let's look at more of those phases in the natal chart, because I know it's going to speak the language to the person more so than if the moon was, not that it's ever not important, but less prominent.
Yeah. Ashwin, you were going to say something?
I mean, to answer your question, like to make things simple, it's always easier to kind of put Saturn as a fixed planet because Moon is the fast moving one. So you can just put Saturn as a fixed planet in your natal position and look at where Moon is in the progress chart, or look at transits and look at natal chart. And you can compare the both. I think, I don't know who said this, maybe Kelly said this, but it's a wonderful idea. Like a person may be born with Sun in Sagittarius, but looking at the progress chart as we progress through life, we wear the Capricorn hat, Aquarius hat, Pisces hat, and we have to think as everyone, not just the born Sagittarian. So, and that's the color we kind of gain as we grow and progress in life. That's similarly, we may need to kind of look at based on where the moon is placed in progress chart or natal chart or transits. I think this might give so much of ideas about a particular person's natal chart, and 1 hour won't be enough for us to kind of look at just this Saturn and Moon or any one particular phase. So it's important to, especially just to kind of throw a hint for client work if it is important for someone. So what I do is like I try to look at if which planet is the time lord and how the moon is forming a configuration with the time lord, and try to see how it affects their psychological nature. So I kind of try to put it in this way. So I try to use primary directions and see where moon is, and try to use perfections and the ruler of the year and where the moon is. So that is an interesting quotient. Like you don't need to kind of be evolutionary or heavy determinant. So just to see how things work, and it works with monthly perfection, the ruler of the monthly perfection, how the natal moon is configured or something like that is really revealing.
Do you so the number one reason why I do astrology is for my personal self-discovery. So like that, so Jen, you brought that up, and that really is like the thing that really turned me on to it. But one thing that I found to be useful is even going through and looking at different planetary pairs in their phases, and see if you have a predominant phase or phases. That can be really useful too, right? So if you have lots of things in gibbous or lots of things in last quarter, right? Lots of things in balsamic, that gives you another entry into understanding yourself, right? Like I have quite a number of things in last quarter, which has given me extra emphasis on learning that phase more, since I realized that it shows up a lot for me. What is that? Traditionally, we say crisis in consciousness around that last quarter has an Aquarius type flavor, right? So even though I don't have planets in Aquarius, at least the standard ones in my chart, that adds a different flavor, right? So it's also another way to look at kind of the themes of the energy. Sometimes we get so stuck, especially, I know sometimes I find this maybe with beginning students, but people would just be, well, I have nothing in those houses, or I have nothing in those signs, right? So I have none of that. That has nothing to do with me. And when you dig deeper into these things, you find that there are different connections that bring out perhaps, and if you're saying that, you probably do have it, and some other connection is kind of where I've come to be with it. And phases can reveal some of that energy too. Are you even just separating waxing and waning is useful. Right. Yeah. Are you here to be more of that first half of the hemicycle, getting things going and growing? Or are you more on the reflection side? Just knowing that about yourself can help you. I mean, if you're more waning, maybe you don't need to push quite so hard. Maybe in fact, pushing is not going to be your best go-to. So, yeah.
I think understanding the inner self is primarily the goal, one of the goals of this book. So um, I think we kind of achieved it to some extent. So
So yeah, that leads me
Right.
to the next question before we open it up to everybody, which is because of being published through a major publisher, you did bring up the idea of concessions. Is there anything that you would add to this that got cut before publication? Is there something that, or an aspect or perspective that you wanted to share that they decided was just not fit for this particular project?
They, but
this
they
is the
ac-
most interesting thing. When Tara took this exceptional job of editing, she's a professional editor. Okay. So she edited the book and they never suggested any improvements or cuttings or editing except for the introduction. And that was very minimal. So the way the book was edited and crafted by Tara was, that is the, it's unbelievable. Okay, but I think that's the truth. So it was an exceptional work. Especially
Wow,
from
that
editing point of
never
view.
happens. That's
Wow.
rare.
That
they
never happens. Yes.
they did say this book is pretty much just, I mean, they had a few edits, don't get us wrong, but they said this book is pretty much ready to go. But what the main thing they wanted, which initially irritated me, but I think it's really good that I had that I did it, because I did write that introduction. They wanted it to be more accessible, it's like to practical magic people, because that's really Llewellyn's community. So they wanted it to be a little bit more open. I tend to go, I don't know, like, not that I'm actually not into those things. Some of it I really am, like Wheel of the Year holidays and stuff like that. I've been doing that for a long time. But yeah, they wanted it to be a little more beginner approachable and to be more open to that community. So we had to do that. My biggest frustration was I'm an artist as well, and I had created what I thought was like this very whimsical cover for the book, and they were like, "We're not having it."
Oh no! Oh no!
This was precisely the reason why I kind of ended up being a Martian when we kind of landed up with Llewellyn. So I was really, being a protective Martian guardian of the book. Like we cannot lose anything, and their initial approach seemed to be like they're going to cut it off. So and I'm good that I had some faith and just let Tara take the course from there. So now we are in a good place.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. I mean, actually there's some pretty storied pasts with Llewellyn covers. There's an astrologer local to this library, Gloria Starr, had an amazing career and wrote many books. And they had used art that the artist hadn't decided was allowed to be used in the context of astrology, and they didn't get his permission. So he filed a lawsuit and they had to reissue the cover, but we have the original. And she picked this book up. She was in the library visiting and she picked it up and she's like, "Do you know about this cover?" And I'm like, "No, Gloria, tell me what's up." And yeah, she was just like, the people at Llewellyn, they just have this, they're very like, I don't know. There's a lot of stories about their cover designs. And I thought that was a really cool sort of hidden secret in the terms of the world of astrology books, So yeah, but this is a beautiful cover. I'm going to show you guys one more time.
They did a good job. And even the name of the book, I mean, we had to come up with a different name, but even I really, and it's better with the introduction. So overall it was good. And I made the worst faux pas ever. In our acknowledgements, I did not thank our editor at Llewellyn. So now every time I do a thing like this, I say, "Oh, thank you," because we had a great editor. It's just true. I did so much editing before because we thought it was going to be self-published that it was just very close to being
perfect,
ready to go.
Yeah.
But they made it better. They
Awesome.
really did make it better. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
It was a really great experience because I always, I just published my book on Fardars before that, and it was a very consciously chosen self-publishing route. So this experience with Llewellyn was really good, and it kind of opened up to me the other side, which I willfully blinded myself to. And after all, it was good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll have you on again to talk about that book, by the way, just flagging that for you. But now I'd love to open it up. We have about 20 minutes left, and I'd love to hear from people. Feel free to actually unmute yourself if you would like and ask questions of our authors. Anyone?
No questions?
This
Nobody
one.
wants to talk about phases? Mm.
Wow. Here we go. Nathan.
Hi, good morning.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Nathan.
Hi. Hello.
I'm relatively new to some of the terms, so I kind of was holding back to ask questions.
Oh.
I'm not familiar with what you were talking about, progress charts. I would love to hear a little bit more so I know where to start. I'm sure picking up the book would help, but that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
And Nathan, just so you know, the book actually won't get into progress chart. So you would not be behind. Like we mentioned it as a way to work with the phases, but progressions, and Jen, you may want to even jump in here because you may explain it better than I do, but it really is a technique to progress the birth chart to see sort of in real time where you're at actualizing the energy that's in your birth chart.
So I'll give an
Yeah.
astronomical analogy.
Yeah.
So imagine in one day of the Earth's rotation, we get the degree of the ascendant changing every 4 minutes. So after 24 hours, the ascendant degree has now gone through every degree of the zodiac, just like when the Earth is revolving around the sun, we have an entire zodiacal experience of the sun through every degree of the zodiac. So in the 1600s, Kepler put these together, and whether or not it existed before him is up for debate, but he popularized secondary progressions because it's that secondary motion of the Earth through the entire zodiac. It's actually, we see it as the sun moving through the zodiac, but really it's us. But that analogy of the rotation of the primary motion of the Earth on its axis to the secondary motion of the Earth around the sun. So what you get is a day of life is analogized to a year of life. So that, you know, if you're 34 days after you're born, you're going to have the moon in a similar position because the moon itself, I mean, actually the first lunar return is 27.5. So in your secondary progress chart, after 27.5 years of your life, the moon in that secondary progress chart will come back around to the natal position. But remember, the sun moves too. So the sun is going to have skipped a few steps over to the side, and it's going to take a while for that lunar phase to recur. Okay. So that's the idea of the secondary progressions, is saying you started here at your birthday, and then for every day after you're born, the transits have a wide effect on your life because the first day of transits equals the first year of your secondary progress chart.
But in the book
Just-
Astrology, yeah. Oh,
No,
sorry.
I was just going to say just one little information. I think Valence also mentioned, although it got popularized very later, Valence mentions about this idea of 1 day is equal to 1 year idea. I don't exactly remember the thing, but I think this simple symbolistic idea was always there, but maybe it was not just explicitly mentioned everywhere. Maybe
Yeah, I think
just a
Kepler
thought.
popularized it for sure. Like
Yes,
he definitely
sure,
made
yeah.
it a foundational thing
Yeah.
because the math is easier than primary directions, for one.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And primary directions, again, relates to that idea of the Earth rotating on its own axis. And so that ascendant degree changing would have an effect. But certain degrees, certain signs rise faster than others, and there's a lot of math. So people were like, well, let's just do secondary progressions because it's a bit easier to tell a day. We have an ephemeris here, like we can see where the moon's going, right? And so because of that, the moon will move quite quickly through the secondary progress chart because it moves 13 degrees in a day. So that's another way that you can, you know, take this book that's meant for beginners and then make it advanced because you can apply it to a new phase that you have in your secondary progressions or in your client's work.
Yeah. So Nathan, you'll find like, and I mean, if you do check out the book, you'll find that it's really set up to be kind of basic information on the moon, kind of what is the moon, what does it do? And then what are the solely lunar phases, the 8 phases, then really a chapter on each planet and then its pairing with the moon. So, I mean, you get like this deep dive on Mars, right? Plus how Mars and the moon work together. And ultimately, when you look at those relationships between your moon and those different planets, it's really like looking at how the different parts of you are integrating. So, you know, like in therapy, people work with parts, like internal family systems is an example of how we work with parts, different parts of me, right? You can call it your inner committee, facets of your psyche, you know, whatever it is you want it to be. Well, the planets in this context represent those different parts, but how they're integrating and the conversations they're having and what phase they're in reveals how long they've been hanging out doing what they're doing. Like Mark Jones, astrologer, will talk about like if it's a new conjunction, right? That's like 2 people sitting on a couch for the first time together, right? You're first figuring out what you're doing together. If you've been hanging out for, you know, all the way through the cycle, then you've been spending more time together, and the relationship between those parts of yourself is going to be different, right? So yes, while you can use it in progressions, the book itself won't get into that level of application. What it will do is take you through every pair, so like Moon Mercury, and give, kind of a cookbook version of each of the phases. But like Ashwin said before, this book is more meant to get you going, not to give an answer. It's more like to start exploring, which is, to me, what I love about astrology, right? We're not saying that we know what it is exactly, but when you open the door, you get more of yourself. Yeah.
Thanks for that question, Nathan.
Yeah. Anybody interested in one of the particular pairs more than another? For example, like, Moon and Venus, we talk about.
Saturn Moon.
We have a Saturn Moon in the
Saturn
chat.
Moon. There we
Again,
go.
with
the
that
most,
combo, right? We can feel like, oh, wait, Saturn just got into tropical Pisces, all these, and we're in an Aries new moon, right? So it's like this. Wait, Ashwin, I'm not a sidereal expert, but this will be a Pisces new moon in the sidereal, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it is actually a little bit echoing of this like concept.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Pisces new moon. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, talk about the Saturn moon.
Saturn Moon. So I think I think someone is asking Saturn Moon trine, but I think it's not necessarily about aspects, but it's about how far the moon is has moved from Saturn. So sometimes if you look at aspects, we have aversion. I know modern astrology promotes quincunx or other aspects that are considered as aversion from the ascendant. But I think the motive of this book, I think Tara would agree here. So it's not necessarily about aspects. It's about how far the moon has traveled from a particular fixed position. So for trine, it should be like around 120 degrees. So that would be like. So first thing to determine here is like what does Saturn and Moon stand for? So
Yes.
let's say that will make things more easier. So Saturn stands for grammar, sequence, determination, grit, misery, and all those things. And Moon indicates what I want, and it's all about I, and the current position of the mental apparatus, and security, emotional security, and many other things. Like, so the moon, when it actually is conjoined with Saturn, it's about mental pressure. So Saturn is this big force, kind of dictating terms on this very soft moon, which doesn't know beyond itself. So for someone who has a very personalized moon, not this Sagittarius kind of like Cancer moon, for them, their own life is world. So home is world. But for someone who has this moon in Sagittarius, this entire world is their home. So that is the difference that you need to make. And so it starts with grit and determination with huge amount of pressure. So when when the moon kind of moves away from Saturn, the moon kind of gains color and confidence. And as the moon gains color and confidence, so the relationship expands. So the moon starts gaining, and the moon is a little bit more on its own. So it's not completely directed by Saturn, unless and until it goes into some kind of a conflict with Saturn when it is in 90-degree mark. So, and then it's a little bit more freer. So Saturn loses its focus on the moon. So moon kind of, becomes more freer now, and it gains more color. And we should also kind of take this sign where the moon is placed and Saturn is placed into account. So when you are saying trine, they have this elemental, there is mutual element. So it's always free in terms of thoughts, in terms of determination, in terms of grammar. It's a little bit free. So there is not this hard and fast rule. things are more free flowing, and life is more like let it be kind of this attitude, and whatever comes, it's okay. So we don't really get jolted by much that happens in life. But I think we also need to take into account other planets and how moon kind of forms relationships with other planets. So in order to kind of have this initial idea, Saturn is 120 degrees ahead of moon. So yeah. So I think whatever I said works for this Saturn and moon away from, moon away from 120 degrees from Saturn. It's more easier, not such conflicting, because moon is more on its own self, and there is no conflict. There is not a lot of grammar, because moon doesn't like grammar. Saturn is this epitome of grammar. So moon doesn't like to be pushed. Moon likes free things. That's why the moon Jupiter conjunction is much better. Jupiter is a different taskmaster, but Saturn is a very hard taskmaster. So moon enjoys this little bit of freedom, although it does not like void, of course. It kind of likes this. Now, as humans, we don't like to be instructed. Our emotions always kind of, will get suppressed, and negative emotions come out if we are instructed or if you are bossed or something like that. And Saturn is this bossy kind of planet. So the moon, as and when it goes away and dims in light with Saturn, it becomes a little bit easier to accept things as it comes.
So
and
if
they
we're
kind of tend to look more,
So in this particular one, you saying Saturn is 120 degrees ahead of the moon. So this means, and correct me if I'm wrong, so we're looking at disseminating phase, right? Because that's 240 degrees. So I just pull out the book. So, I mean, let's just look at that phase, right? Disseminating phase with Moon Saturn. It's a period of retrospection and realization that we can't always use the same approach in life. We need flexibility and to learn to adapt and to work within the structures set around us. We have to be the ones who move, right? So to what Ashwin is saying, to kind of simplify it down, moon and its fluidity is useful here, right? We have to move to sort of readjust that structure. Now, there's of course more in here than that, but that disseminating phase in general, even if you so think about with Moon and Saturn, bridging abundance and limitations, energy flow and form, how do those two things come together? Disseminating phase on its own has a Capricorn flavor. It's about taking charge and stepping up and actually disseminating your wisdom or information somehow into life, right? So there's a certain level of almost like, I mean, to me, that phase, and as I told you guys all, I'm in that sun, moon progress phase. It's partly about growing up. Right? What do you need to adjust and to shift to do what you need to do? So those two parts of you, when you think about it, there is think about the moon part of yourself, right? That kind of still wants its childish things, no matter how grown up we are. Even if you have a moon in Capricorn, I mean, you're still going to have the moon tendencies. Think about that paired with Saturn in a disseminating phase that already has a Capricorn flavor. That's a lot of Saturnian Capricornian energy trying to affect or shape or give that moon a new container to work within, right? A new way to fill the form out with what's already been created, because disseminating, again, it's not waxing, it's not building. Those two have already created the thing they've created, but now we have to sort of figure how to adjust, how to work within the rules. Right. I think of disseminating phase sometimes as it's like, how can you be creative in the structure that's already there, right? Which there still is creativity, but you also have to learn to play by the rules a little bit when you're in a disseminating phase. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Yeah.
And just to read
precisely because the moon is actually, we need to look at two things. When it's in 120 degrees, it's different, but in 240 degrees, it's different. So culmination is already over. So moon is,
yes.
going to reach Saturn again. So
yes.
when it's, so there, our resources are a little bit limited. So we need to be, exactly. So we need to be more mindful about what we have in hand and kind of, be resourceful about what we, how we channelize our existing resources and all these things. So I think what she said was really brilliant.
Well, I just am like my brain just has to like, like sort of the concrete place. But I'm glad you brought up the part about being past the opposition, because disseminating in some ways, I know full moon is, or full is the peak, but disseminating to me is almost more the peak, because during full, sometimes we're actually becoming aware of what the heck did I actually do, right? What's actually here? There's like an awareness part. Disseminating is kind of like that big push of, okay, what am I doing? And not that you can't still do something with it last quarter, balsamic, but it starts to like recede, right? Disseminating, there's still a lot of juice, right? So there's a lot of responsibility around what you're going to do with that part of yourself or that part of life or whatever that is representing for you right now.
Yeah. And distribution, if we use that analogous
Great.
word, is a
Great
lot of
word.
work on its own. It's a different kind of pushing,
Yeah.
right? It's not a growing and a sort of skill building. It's more of
Yes.
a sharing and getting it out there.
That's
It's
right.
a different type of labor for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you for that question.
Yeah, it was a great question. A great example. Thanks for letting us use your actual chart. It's always the most useful to me.
Yeah. So we have about 5 more minutes. Anyone want to sneak in a last question for our authors here? Don't be shy. Speaking of Moon Saturn, like okay, if no one's asking anything, I have a wrap-up question, kind of. It's 2 parts. One is, are the two of you going to collaborate again? And that I don't want to put any pressure in if in case the answer is no. And then also, what are you working on now?
We haven't discussed much about collaboration, but I think both of us would be open from my perspective. I'm always open to collaborate with this. So that is one thing. And currently, I'm working on a book on mundane astrology. It's medieval mundane astrology, concentrating on Masha Allah and some of the Ptolemaic considerations and Abu Mashar.
Yeah.
Will you be self-publishing
Primarily
that?
focusing on ingresses and conjunctions.
Very
So,
cool. Will you be self-publishing that one again?
I don't know.
Okay. Good answer. It's good to not know.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
I hope that we do collaborate again. I know we're both open to it. So feels like a real possibility. This year, I work for a company called Sage Goddess that sells a lot of metaphysical products, but also does a lot of online metaphysical education. So I am the teacher of one part of that. It's a monthly program or an annual program. So I'm teaching a class called Living Astrology every month there, which keeps me very busy. And we have about, I don't know, 1,500 or 2,000 students. So it's a big, it's a big gig. So that's this year, and it's on site. So like after this, I got a jam to commute down to South Bay here in California. And my own personal work, which I haven't had the time to do some of the things that I really want to do, just because I'm choosing to do something else. But living planets first, as I think some of you already know, is like my big passion. Like Barbara's smiling because she knows I am in love. I've been doing planets first now since 2015, which is a technique where it's been around for a long time. I just hadn't heard anyone talk about it. You just basically choose a planet that you want to live your life through, like pick that part of yourself as like the main filter to experience your life. And with the chart, you rotate that planet to the ascendant. So I've been picking one on my birthday every year, and I do this with my clients and I teach on it. And so that, I thought that would be the first book I would write. So that is definitely coming on the horizon, because my life gets blown open every year when I choose a different planet. Like, it's just incredible for me with astrology. When you choose to experience those parts of yourself through those archetypes, they will show you, like, or you will show you, whatever words you want to use around that. And so that experiential part of it has been so meaningful for me. So yeah, is my big jam. And on my little YouTube channel, like I've got, like a little video on living each planet first, and keep doing it because rocks my world every year. This year is Uranus first, and I could go on for days. It took me a lot of years to choose that one. It's a little scary, but yeah. So that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad you're still doing that work. I remember when I heard that first, and I was like, wow, that is like a cool way of going about exploring your chart. So yes, perfect. Well, thank you so much for spending your morning, and good luck with your commute across LA or SoCal, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us, everybody here. This will be replayed on YouTube, and I hope to see you again at a future book chat.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.